Are there assassination plots happening against the felon and Putin as they prepare for this Alaska meeting? Will the Alaska meeting even happen? And Kamala Harris is president in 2029? Let's look into that. Welcome to Scrying Out Loud. My name is Trevor. First off, a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. Thank you for liking, watching, commenting on the videos, sharing the videos, promoting the channel on your own social media platforms. It's all greatly, greatly appreciated. And if you've donated money to the channel through the super thanks, buy me a coffee, Venmo, a huge, huge thank you. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. So someone asked me to look into whether there would be assassination plots against the felon as they prepare for this Alaska meeting with Putin. And I had mentioned some time ago that I kept seeing lots of plotting, assassination plotting for the felon and for Putin both. And I want to take a look at whether this could be something that might be planned for the Alaska meeting. Now, of course, the Alaska meeting hasn't been announced for very long, but I always kind of had this really subdued feeling that it might be somebody that was in the government or that the felon um, perhaps knew. We've been keeping getting this idea of a spy in the camp, and they're holding this on a military base, or at least that's where they're landing the planes. And to my understanding, things can quickly change with these things. Um, and we just had a shooting on another military base. It makes me wonder. So we'll look into um, are there going to be, first of all, will the Alaska meeting happen? Are there going to be protests in Alaska? Are there going to be assassination plots against Trump and or Putin? And is Kamala going to run in 28? And is she going to win? All right, so let's start with, is this Alaska meeting going to happen? What do we need to know about that? So will the Alaska meeting happen? No, it sounds kind of crazy, but part of me feels like they're at least worried about it in the sense of some safety. Um, Now the thing about the felon is he doesn't often change course because he's incapable of it, even if it's going to make him look bad. Now, but he released this kind of ultimatum today or yesterday of, you know, there's going to be big consequences if Putin doesn't agree to end the Ukraine war. Really, it's the Ukraine invasion, but in a way, this feels like a way to get out of it if they feel they need to. I think that's all that statement was about. I do think that they have some safety concerns. So we'll look into that. First, we're going to look to see whether the meeting's going to take place. The other thing is it appears that the felon is funneling money towards Elon Musk again. And I believe this is an attempt to shut Musk up from talking about how bad he smells, all the wonderful things that he's been saying. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to work, by the way. I think Musk, when he left, he was done. I don't know that we'll ever get to the bottom of why, but yeah. So will the Alaska meeting take place? So it's scheduled to take place tomorrow, Friday. And they don't give a time, of course, because safety reasons. Or at least if they might have by the time this video gets released. But so I'm recording this early Thursday morning on the East Coast. Um, I had a hard time picturing the meeting. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to take place. I just had a hard time picturing it. Um, this usually happens when, uh, things don't have a lot of energy to them. This meeting, first of all, I don't buy for a minute. It's about Ukraine. We talked about that before. It feels very personal. Um, and I think the threat against Putin yesterday, it just it feels like the felon knows he's not going to get what he wants personally. More Epstein stuff keeps coming out slowly, slowly, slowly. The media is doing a terrible job covering it. I do suggest you check out some of the democratically aligned YouTube news places out there. Of course, do your own research too and fact check it. Not everything's exactly as it seems, but this meeting take place. Just can't seem to picture it. Like, why would they let Putin land a plane on a military base? Why would they let Putin on a US military base? It doesn't, I mean, I know they don't make sense, but just is really, let's see what the cards say. I mean, I do think there's quite a few military members that are vehemently opposed to this idea. We get the truth, the Ace of Swords. That's a yes card, so the truth is going to come out. Logistically, this feels kind of like a nightmare. It just does. It doesn't. There's a lot of weapons on military bases that would, the Secret Services are probably happy about that. Then the seven or the Eight of Pentacles. If one plan doesn't work, try another. Now we're so close to this happening. Get the Eight of Wands, new leadership, newness with the aces. Now we get the Seven of Pentacles, planting seeds. We'll get to the question of whether there's going to be whether there are assassination plots. Now, I've never seen a successful assassination attempt against the felon. I don't know even if there was an assassination plot. It's as if it's not him plotting it himself, to garner attention and sympathy. This actually could very well be part of the plan. The emperor, abuse of power in the presidency. We get the two of swords, choices needing to be made. I don't think that this is 100% set in stone. I don't think the White House would ever come out and say that unless they come out and announce that it's not going to happen. I think they'll be rather definitive on it. You get justice, balance, karmic justice. The situation really feels fairly bizarre to me. Why would Putin want to land at a US military base? I don't know. Something seems wrong about it. Then we get partnerships, the Two of Cups. So we're going to get the truth. All the seeds that have been planted about the relationship between Putin and the felon, I think, are true. I do think Putin holds a lot over the felon. Does make me wonder what's in it for him other than to extort more. But on a military base, that seems kind of risky. choices need to be made because the seeds have been planted to not make this meeting happen uh, by assassination plots, something along those lines. But if one plan doesn't work, try another. It very well could be that the meeting gets moved at the last minute. I do think it takes place. I do think it's a lot of burdens. Um, I think we won't hear about it, but I think behind the scenes, somebody else comes in and steps in and maybe tweaks exactly what the plan is. This still is a massive abuse of power by the felon, and just a bad look to have a horrible person like Putin on a military base. Um, but it levels things out in a way. Like it just keeps exposing him for what he is. And, it is catching up with him. The polling's starting to show it. People do not believe the CPI number. You know, get the Three of Swords, sabotage, heartache, and messages coming forward and needing to defend oneself. Logically, my brain says, yes, this will happen. But my spidey senses say that there's something going on behind the scenes with regards to like the sabotage. Someone's trying to sabotage this. I don't know that it stops the meeting, but there's things going on behind the scenes that we can't see. Okay, so um, let's first look to see, are there going to be big protests at in Alaska? Are there going to be big protests in Alaska? I mean, there's protests all over the place. There was more protests near where we live, demanding, meetings with town hall meetings with the Congress, our representative in Congress, um, who's refusing to talk to the public. So I can't imagine that there's not protests, but what do we need to know about the protests? I'm sure there will be protesters, but whether it's 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, it's a different story. Alaska might have been picked for that reason, not because that the people of Alaska aren't patriotic and going to protest against the felon, but just because there's not the sheer numbers of them to do it, and it's not exactly easy to travel from one part of the state to the other, um, you know, spontaneously without planning it. Okay. Will there be? Yeah, there's definitely going to be protests. I think we'll see a lot of Ukrainian flags. Um, Similar type of messaging that we've seen in other protests. I do think this will get some local media coverage. I'm not sure how much the national media will pay attention to it. Um, People are just done. I mean, the Eight of Cups. I mean, this is second. It popped out of the deck earlier, and then we get it again. People are walking away from people that supported him, people that voted for him are walking away. Now, most of these people that are walking away aren't hardcore MAGA. They just, for whatever reason, thought it was a reasonable thing to do to vote for him. The Nine of Wands, I do think that there is guardrails in place so that the felon isn't seen passing any of the protests. I don't know that that'll be successful. The Ten of Wands, like I said, it's not as easy versus if, Putin were coming to Seattle, there would be massive protests. Or if Putin were even coming to, Houston or Dallas or DC or, a big city in the continental United States, there would be massive protests. because the logistics of it aren't as hard to pull off. It's pretty easy to get in your car and drive to DC. Um, yeah, the surrounding kind of neighborhood around Anchorage, could certainly drive there, but all of Alaska can't. And the rest of us in the continental United States, there's only so many flights to Anchorage and Fairbanks to have. The Knight of Cups, they're going to send a message for sure. Alaska overwhelmingly voted for the felon, which I found somewhat surprising, but not terribly surprising. The Ace of Pentacles. I think the felon is going through a wake-up call here. It's like he's realizing that he's lost a lot of support and that people don't believe anything he says anymore, especially when it comes to the economy. I think the last poll I saw on this is like, 70% of people think the economy is in recession. It very well might be, but certainly the economic numbers to indicate what the precise definition of a recession is aren't there yet. Um, but I don't know that we can trust the numbers. The Six of Swords, I do think some people will travel to Alaska to protest. The Knight of Wands to send, this fiery message, this passionate message. The Knight of Swords, people are on edge. People are on their breaking point. That's pretty much where it's at. People are pretty fed up. I went to the grocery store today, or yesterday, I should say. Um, and what amazed me was not necessarily the prices of things, although things are definitely more expensive than they were, when I went the last time. But everybody in the grocery store had either their coupon book or their phone opened or the weekly advert or a list. People don't walk into the grocery store anymore and just buy things. It's all very planned. Now, I'm not sure how it is in your guys' neighborhoods, but in my neighborhood, this is kind of a new thing. I mean, yeah, there's always one or two people with maybe a list. I mean, I certainly go in with a list, but um, to the extent and the paper coupons that the grocery stores have been mailing out, I mean, to get people into the stores is something new. Like I'd never received paper coupons before. Um, so I do think people just don't believe the economic stuff. There's a lot of volatility here with whether this will be successful or not, and what the definition of success is with the moon card, but also more things coming to the surface. So people are already walking away from him because of the new financial reality that we find ourselves in with all these tariffs. Uh, bourbon distilleries filing for bankruptcy in Kentucky, uh, farmers just tilling their crops under because they can't get them harvested. Um, all this volatility is making people want to move away. They're wanting stability, and this is ultimately why I don't think any sort of attempt to gerrymander their way into a victory in 26 is going to work. The people are mad. They're angry about the finances because we're it's just this big burden that nobody needed. It's confusing to a lot of people because it feels really self-inflicted. Uh, People want to tell a story, about how they're on edge. And, yes, there's going to be guardrails in place to keep it hidden from the felon, but ultimately the country is headed in the right direction in the long term. In the short term, it is going to be chaos. It just is. But in the long term, you know, uh, that's several years out, but because when Vance takes over, it's still going to be a little bit crazy. It'll be more predictable, but still crazy. Let's see what's underneath here. and get the world card. It's an end of a cycle. People are just done with him. And we get the sunshine. People see the truth. So, I think the Epstein uh, saga is playing into a lot of people's minds. They're, thinking, well, if they're hiding this, whatever. And, there's another interesting poll out that where shockingly, like 48% of the country knew that the grand jury testimony couldn't be released even if they wanted to release it. So people are paying attention. So this is good. Okay, will there be assassination plots? Are there going to be assassination plots? This isn't the right deck. Let's go with this one. They're going to be assassination plots. Let's see what's on the bottom of this. The Six of Wands victory. Hope they're not successful if there are, because I just think that would be bad for everyone. Are there assassination plots? We will discover them if there are. They're quietly in the news, There's been like 4 or 5 exposed recently over the last couple months. The assassination plots. I do worry that there's a couple people. I don't think they'll be successful, but I do think that there's a couple people that might get wrapped up into this that otherwise would have very productive lives. There's a thin line between protesting and doing the right thing and taking it one step too far. Whether they're serious or not, even if they're joking about it, this can end up really bad. And that's what I'm kind of sensing, is that there's somebody that's just joking about it that ends up getting ensnared in. And now, if they're full-fledged plotting an assassination attempt, that's obviously got to be dealt with. But we don't want him to be a martyr, that's for sure. It's the last thing we need. We need him to. Somebody put it really well in the comments. I try to get to all your comments, by the way. I'm not always successful. As the channel's grown, it's been harder and harder to do that. But somebody put it pretty eloquently that, we'll eventually erase him from history. And I do think that's correct. Not what he did, but just he'll just be thought of as a name of a bad person. That's basically what it'll be in a couple hundred years. And they're going to be are there going to be assassination? See the 5 of Cups and the Scrying Bowl. So that loss. So just get like the kind of a camouflage like color through. I do think it is gonna, if I do feel like somebody in the military is doing this. Whether they're joking or not, I don't know. I mean, the truth is there's probably hundreds of assassination plots going on right now. Attempts is a different thing, but again, I mean, the 3 swords again. I mean, a saboteur, right? Yeah. Somebody maybe even being paid, possibly set up. Uh, a lot of people think that the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania was faked. I did a reading on that on the other channel. Certainly the stories don't add up. And then the Four of Pentacles, stability. Let's keep going here. Judgment. Yeah, people have somebody's made up their mind. They view him as ill and unstable, which is pretty accurate. The question is, how big of a threat is that? And it seems like a huge threat, but I'm not so sure that everybody's willing to go down with the ship, right? I don't think, people would go along with him shooting off nuclear weapons, for example. That's just not going to happen. Um, but it's certainly a threat. Uh, yeah, logic, consistency with the King of Swords. I think the instability is driving people crazy. I think it makes it hard to plan. People don't like that. People don't like when they can't see the future, or even dream of a future. I think a lot of people feel like they can't dream of a future. So this leads to all sorts of craziness. We have this Seven of Cups, some illusioned and delusioned, yeah, thinking. This makes a lot of sense now. We get the greedy merchant and also wish fulfillment with the Nine of Cups and blind choices with the Two of Swords. So yeah, I do think there's somebody that's willing to try to sabotage this meeting in this way because they feel like he's sick, ill, and he's basically making decisions on a whim. All of that is true. But the problem with that is it's delusional to think that getting rid of him in this manner would bring stability because it just won't. It'll make the country even more crazy. So I, we'll throw a card here in just a sec to see if it's successful, but I don't think so. I feel like it's a setup. I feel like they take somebody who's already made up their mind, they kind of play it up. Would be consistent with what I think happened in Pennsylvania and just indicative of the greed, but also the fulfillment of the person who wants him gone. I don't think they'll actually be shot. We do get completion with the world card. And when people celebrating, this is pretty common after the death card comes up and readings on him. Let's just ask, will this be successful? And then we'll move on to Vice President Harris. Is there even going to be an attempt, or is it just a plot? An attempt or just a plot? It's too many cards. An attempt or just a plot? Attempt or just I think it's just a plot. I don't think it's an attempt. I do think the potential's there, but I think the person will back out and realize that it's not good. But I think unfortunately they do. Maybe we hear about it and have some legal issues because of it. I mean, we get the Page of Swords, the spy in the camp, and like I've always said, if there was a card for an assassin, it's the Page of Swords. But then we get kind of discernment, this prosecutorial discernment. Well, we get death again. The death card is very frequent these days. Uh, oh. The spy in the camp, discernment, and death. I, I don't, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think so. I really don't, but This is one of those things where intuition and logic meet. And we have to be careful. We're not supposed to give up our logic when we use our intuition. Like the feel of it is that there's something big that's going to happen this week. And that hasn't happened yet. Although the meeting itself happening is pretty big. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's move on to Vice President Harris and have some happy stuff to talk about for a little bit of a change of pace. So she announced she's not going to run for governor of California. Um, this is good. Like I think I had done readings on this in the past. It's like if she ran, she would have won. But it didn't make a lot of political sense if she wanted to run for president in 28. So, in that sense, let me use this deck. Okay, so will she run for president in 28? She's certainly got a great head start on all the Democrats if she does. Democrats aren't scared of nominating, although I don't, on a presidential level, I don't think they've ever nominated somebody that had lost. But she didn't really run a full campaign because of the whole situation. So, and then I don't think she got to run the campaign that she wanted because, the whole Israel and ties to Biden's just now that Israel's gone way over the top, I think you can run against Israel and be successful in this country. In fact, I think we'll see Democrats doing that. Not against the Israeli people, of course, just against Netanyahu. I think the Israeli people are against Netanyahu too. I don't think anybody likes what's going on over there. Well, some do, but most people don't. Okay, will she run in 28? What do we need to know about this? So she's thinking about it. She's contemplating the toll on her family. I think she thinks Vance would be an easy win. I think that's true for any Democrat. I actually don't think it matters who the Republican is either. I think the Democrats will win just because the country is going to want to turn in a different direction after this is over. Yeah, she's manifesting. This is good. The magician. She feels a little confined. But I think she breaks free of that versus when, in 24, she really couldn't break free of Biden as the setting vice president. It was very confining. And I think she knows that she wouldn't be confined to that this time around. While she'd have to answer for certain policies of Biden, she could say that they were wrong this time. She wouldn't risk alienating the because Biden had a pretty hard core support. He really did. The Four of Swords, she just worry about the toll that this is going to take on not her health, but in particular her family's health. Although she knows that it's going to mean sleepless nights. The Two of Wands, the decision's going to happen soon. Whether it's announced, it's a different thing. Although I've always felt like a Democrat announces sometime this year. The Two of Swords, lots of decisions. And the Seven of Cups, illusion, delusion, and thinking about is it feasible? Will she win? All of these things. I wouldn't be surprised if they're already doing private polling on this. And Justice, you know, Justice here, I think her winning would be justice in a lot of sense. It would balance things out. Because I think the Democrat wins in 28, and regardless of the Republican, and regardless of who the Democrat is. I mean, unless the Democrats go way off and to left field, and I mean, with Bernie Sanders pretty much said he's not going to run. That would be the only one that I could think that would create a problem because of his age, but he's already said that he wouldn't run. So as long as they don't nominate somebody super old, I think they'll win. We get the devil card. She's used to the toxicity. She's preparing herself to have that in the environment around. And then we get the hermit card. She's being very introspective about this. She's taking a lot of thought. So she's trying to manifest it to make the decision. And in the meantime, she's really thinking this through hard, not necessarily by herself, but with her and her husband and her stepchildren. Um, the country wants balance. She knows that. I think she knows the Democrat wins regardless. I don't see any scenario where they don't. So that's definitely factoring in, but that she's also worried about, you know, the health of her family, not her health. Her health is fine. The Four of Swords. She realizes she wouldn't be confined the way she was last time. She does realize that she needs to be careful about how she announces this. I think she wants a competitive primary. Now, that might sound counterintuitive, but what happened in 2020, no, 2016, I'm sorry, where, it was Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Martin O'Malley for a quick second. I mean, there were some others, Jim Webb, who was never going to win the Democratic nomination, nobody else serious. And except for those three, I don't think she wants to announce and there only be three people running. And I think she would clear the field because I do think she's got that much ability to win the nomination. There are going to be some Democrats that are skeptical for sure on whether she can win the presidency, but there's no way they're not voting for her in the general election. And I think that's what she wants, is she wants to make sure that there's a competitive primary so it doesn't look like it was just, her being given the nomination. Um, she knows that there's a lot of illusion and delusion thinking and a lot of mis and disinformation around her. And with the, as AI gets more powerful, combating these things, I think, is going to require every campaign to have a special task force almost to combat the lies. Like they have to have a better TikTok presence, a better Twitter presence, a better Blue Sky presence, although Blue Sky wasn't big at the time. Even a better YouTube presence to knock down all of this stuff. And that's going to create, that's like for people like you and I to go on there and, counterpoint and counterpunch, because a campaign is no longer, one person against another person. It's really one person and 2 million of their followers against the other person and 2 million of their followers. So things are very different. And I think she realizes that now. We get the Tower card. She's ready to build down and rebuilds. We get the Page of Swords. Uh, I think she feels like she was sabotaged a little bit by the Bidens, but not intentionally, despite the fact that she kind of had to run on his policies. And if one plan doesn't work, try another. And then we get the Chariot card, which really makes me think that she's running. So I think she's going to run. I do. I think she's, you know, it's kind of like once a teacher, always a teacher, once a nurse, always a nurse. Once a public servant, always a public servant. Um, you know, she could already be doing other things if she wanted to, but she's not. So okay, so will she win? Like I said, I already think that the Democrats going to win no matter what, but let's see what the cards have to say. So will she? Just going to give these a quick flash over the candle just to get some of that felon energy out of here. Will she win? She win. I think there are some mistakes in 2024 that she won't make again. I think big celebrity endorsements are great, but I think, those ultimately hurt her in the eyes of the underworld that nobody saw, right? Like the manosphere and the Twittersphere spreading all this false information, you know, and of course, the biggest thing that hurt her by far was Biden sending weapons to Israel. That she probably would have that he probably wouldn't have had even a close chance about that. Uh, I live in a place where there's some little liberal arts colleges, and there are already big protests planned against Netanyahu. So the Democrat is going to have to like thread that needle. But given how bad the Republicans have been on this and not caring about um, Gaza at all, I just don't think that they have a leg to stand on here. Will she win? So, celebrations, passionate, fiery, and precise messaging. Again, I don't think that she was able to really message the way she wanted to message. I think that there was too much restrictions on her. Like she wasn't allowed to get angry. If she had run the campaign the way she did the first debate, and that's probably the way she wanted to run it, but wasn't allowed to, I think it would have been a different result. The Ten of Swords, she needs to put an end to this dark cycle and start a new one. Uh, Logic and consistency. And she's going to have a longer time to get her message out. She's not going to have to get it out in whatever it was, 70 days or I don't know how many days it was, but it wasn't long, right? 3 months. Here she is, the Queen of Swords, really contemplating how this is done, what kind of campaign she wants to run, whether she wants to run it. I think she ultimately decides she does. Um, and she's not naive. She knows it's an uphill burden. But she also knows that we have to put an end to this cycle, and two tens over the top of each other, I think, is quite significant. We get the illusion and delusion card again. It's like that cloud has busted. She's very clear-headed about the type political warfare Republicans are going to use. We're seeing it in clear action. They know they're going to lose this midterm election, so they are trying their damnedest to rewrite the rules. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they try something similar, but there's only so much they can do. We get the Hierophant, her higher self. Lots of prayer and lots of introspection here from a lot of people, just the populace. People will be very willing to give her money again. And yeah, this makes a lot of sense. The Emperor card, abuse of power. People want freedom from the burdens that have been caused by the felon. Now, the felon will not be on the ballot, but it won't matter because all the Republicans are tied to him. It doesn't matter what they say. It's not going to be hard to put up video clips showing how they supported crazy things. So it just doesn't matter who the Republican is. Um, spirituality, I think, is growing in this country. Religion is dwindling. And I think, spirituality is needed to overcome these burdens. And what people want, they just want logic and consistency. That's all they want. They want to know what the rules are going to be 20 years down the road so that they can plan to save for their kids' college, so they could plan to save for retirement, so they know what their retirement is going to be if they are retired, that the rules aren't going to change, that they're not going to have to worry about healthcare changing, drug prices changing, all these things. People want consistency. They want an end to the dark cycle. They want an end of living in this world that doesn't make any sense, where up is down and down is up, and books are bad and, Nazis are good. It's just people are kind of done with it. They'll be willing to put a lot of effort into helping the Democrat get elected. And I think she knows that, and I think she's really thinking about it. And I think if she's the nominee, which if she runs, I'm pretty sure she will be. It is a ways out, so things can change. But yeah, I think the Ten of Pentacles again, the end of a cycle, and also kind of this idea of greed and inheritance and getting away from that. She's got the circle of support with the Three of Cups. She's waiting, looking at this from all different perspectives, and she knows that they have to put up guardrails and that they have to be ready to fight dirty, that they have to be ready to counteract all the misinformation. And that's going to take people like you and me, in particular younger people, fighting on TikTok and whatever the new craze will be then. Because all that information, whether true or not, influences people's judgment. And I think she realizes that people can be quite gullible, and nothing can be taken for granted. So I do think that she wins and she's the next president. When I was scrying about this, I always get the image of her with Pete Buttigieg. I don't know that he's her pick for vice president, but he's a key person in the campaign. There's something about that connection, to like all the marginalized groups that, for whatever reason didn't show up, didn't vote, didn't whatever. It's not going to happen this next time. I mean, marriage equality is under attack, for example. Voting rights are under attack on a House level. Can't gerrymander Senate and presidential races. So yeah, I do think that she runs and she wins. All right. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting the channel. I'll be back with another video.